Hi everybody, my name is Angela Cleary. I'm a feminine empowerment coach and I specialise in healing after narcissistic abuse. So today I want to talk about the difference between interdependent relationships and codependent relationships. Now I've done videos on codependent relationships before because that's what I've known. And obviously I understand what an interdependent relationship is, but I've never experienced it myself up until now. And the universe has given me signs of what an interdependent relationship could look like. So I kind of want to explain just the contrast between the both and the unhealthy dynamic within a codependent relationship and the healthy dynamics of an interdependent relationship. So with codependency, there is an imbalance in the relationship. There is one person giving too much, one person receiving too much as well. But say when you're codependent, you're unhealthily obsessed with being with that other person. It's like you need to be with that other person. And because of your own insecurities, when you're not with that person, you go into like a state of panic, a state of freak out even. Do you know? And this is because of your own internal insecurities. We become codependent in relationships because we haven't healed our core wounds. We have maybe abandonment issues, rejection issues, inner trauma that hasn't been healed to lead us to become overly dependent on another human being for our validation, for love. When we're unhealed, we don't love ourselves fully. So we depend on external vices or external people to give us that validation, which isn't healthy. Like with codependent relationships, the unhealthy dynamic is that you need that other person to be happy. You neglect everything about who you are to fit into their world. And now this happens with narcissistic relationships especially. And this can happen with family members and work relationship friends as well. So it's not just romantic. But when we're codependent, like we lose all sense of self. We lose our voice. We lose who we are. We try to make everything about that other person. We neglect our own needs due to that other person. We lose all interest in all our own likes and our own hobbies and our own life because we're so fixated on making that other person like us or making that other person happy. We lose touch with friends and family members because it's like we're walking on eggshells. We're actually afraid. It gets to a fear-based energy where like you're afraid to disrupt, I suppose, or you're afraid of confrontation, you're afraid of conflict. So like you stop using your voice because you're afraid, you're so insecure in yourself, you're afraid to upset that other person. And a lot of the times as well, it's because you're afraid that person will leave you. Now this is very, very unhealthy. When we're so insecure within ourselves, when we're seeking for that validation outside ourselves, we lose all of who we are trying to make another person happy. This is unhealthy. This is not a good relationship dynamic. Whereas interdependence within relationships is when you keep your independence. You keep who you are. Like what I love is, you know what they say, 1 and 1 is equal to 2 when you come into union with someone. What I love about the spiritual connections is 1 and 1 equals 11. You remain number 1 and they remain number 1 separately. And you come together in this union to make 11 rather than 2. You know, so you're 1 and 1. Like no one loses their status, like in a sense. Like no one loses who they are. Like I've been single for a long time now. And I've been very, very independent within myself. Obviously healing what I had inside me that attracted codependent relationships. Because I that's all I've ever known. I've only ever known unhealthy relationship dynamics. I've only ever known obsession in a sense. Being so fixated on how that other person feels about me with neglecting how I felt about myself. I didn't love myself. I didn't even like myself. And I was so afraid that I was so unlovable and so unworthy that, you know, when you're in a relationship, you hold on for dear life. And that's detrimental. Like when it comes to say narcissistic relationships or abusive relationships, this dynamic works for the other partner. But when you get into a healthy relationship with a good person, this kind of energy could actually drive that person away. So you need to maintain your own independence within that relationship. And I've been questioning this because, what is codependency or what is romance? Because all I've ever known is codependency. And, I'll watch rom-coms, so I watch certain programs about love just to understand people and the inner relationship dynamics. And I'm questioning this lately. Do you know, what parts of relationships have I been used to that were actually codependent rather than romantic? Like, I've always been the kind of person that's like, oh, I love that morning text, when you're dating somebody and it's like, oh, they're thinking of you in the morning. But when I was watching Married at First Sight Australia, and your man was like, oh, she makes sure, when it's long distance now, she makes sure I ring her at 5 o'clock every morning. And that triggered me. And I was like, why does that trigger me? Because I always loved happy morning text, or, good morning text. And I was like, is that good morning text codependent or romantic? And I'm like, what if somebody's busy? Like, what if you have those morning texts every morning, and then one morning your partner is late for work, they sleep through their alarm, they're running out the door, they're driving erratically to work, they haven't got that time to text you. Like, what are you going to feel if you don't get that text message? You're going to start going, oh my God, he doesn't like me anymore. Oh my God, freak out. Like, what did I do wrong? But that's actually codependency. That's, if you're so fixated on that morning text for your validation, that is actually codependency. That's not romance. Like, we should be able to get into a relationship, be so secure in ourselves and the love we have for ourselves, be so secure with that other person's feelings for you that you don't need that text message or that validation in the 3D world, because you're going to know it in your heart, you're going to know it in your soul. So, like, what parts of relationships have we been so used to that we're bringing into these relationships that no longer actually work, that don't actually fit into interdependent relationships? See, that's the questions I've been having at the minute, because, I'm like, is this my inner child, my codependent tendencies that craves this validation? Or is it my fantasy about romance that craves this validation? And like, I'm starting to see that it's actually the codependent side. That need for constant communication is a codependent tendency, I think. And that's what I believe, because I look back, when we're teenagers and stuff and we're texting all the time, we're flat out on the phone, it's like the text message has to be instant. And if you don't get an instant reply, you freak out. That is codependency. That is because you're not happy within your own skin. Like, when we're so codependent on somebody else, we lose all sense of who we are. We lose our personality because we try to fit into their box. We try to fit into their world. But with interdependence, we should have our own separate worlds. People, like, within relationships, partners should be able to do their own thing separately as well as together. They should be able to know when to come together and when to actually do their own thing. Space is so important, like, especially for empaths. We need that time to recharge. And when I've been in codependent relationships, like, you don't leave the room of that partner. You just don't. Like, everything is, you do that with them. You watch their TV programs. You stop watching anything that you've ever watched. You stop doing things that you ever watched because you're doing what they're doing because you're afraid to be away from them. And I remember that in past relationships. If I was away from my ex, like, I'd freak out for 2 reasons. One, because he'd accuse me of doing something wrong. He used to accuse me of flirting even if I hugged a 70-year-old man. Genuinely, if I hugged somebody, I couldn't hug people for years because he accused me of cheating. This was the fear I'd have if I was separate from him, because I'd be like, both of the relationships in my 20s, when I was separate from them, they would accuse me of all fucking sorts. Excuse my language. And also I'd be so fearful that they'd be doing something. And one of my exes, actually, Jesus, I'd be away from him and I'd come back and he'd be sitting at the bar in the pub with his ex. So, hello, I wasn't just being paranoid. It was this consuming fear that he was going to be doing something wrong. And that's the unhealthy dynamic, especially with a narcissist or a controlling person. That's what happens. But, like, you cannot spend 2 minutes away from that person without freaking out. And that isn't, like, obviously with narcissists and abusive partners, it's kind of different, but it still comes down to your internal core wounds. It still comes down to your insecurity. This is the power of your independence and being independent outside of a relationship and coming into a relationship independent and keeping your independence. We all have lives. As I said, I've been independent for over 6 years now. And like that, I think was my biggest fear about getting into a relationship again, was losing myself again, losing sight of who I was, losing my personality, losing my interests, losing just my life. And like I've been saying it for the last few years because I've been consciously healing. I want to do this healing before I get into another relationship. I want to be in a healthy relationship. I want to be in an interdependent relationship. But because we need to heal ourselves before we can actually do that. And because, I've only ever known codependent relationships, you're going to compare everything that comes in or anything that comes into your life to that. And you're going to ask yourself, you're like, this is the part that just gets me so confused. You are going to ask yourself, why is this so different? Why isn't he doing the things that other people did? And that's a good thing. That is a good sign. That's a green flag. That this person is not the same as your narcissistic ex or your abusive exes. This is a good thing. But because we know no different, I just find this so funny in a way, because we know no different, and we're kind of wondering why it's not feeling codependent. Sorry, it just gets me. Like, my mind is so, the mind is crazy, really, because we're kind of going, I've known no different to this toxicity, this untoxic behavior is making me question why this whole thing. I'm going to do a video tomorrow on self-sabotage and red flags, because that's kind of connected to what this video is about as well. But like, genuinely, we're like kind of going, this feels different, this looks different, why is this so different? Is it actually healthy? And am I just reverting back to my codependent ways? Like, what is it? And it's mind-blowing, because you're kind of like, I've known this for so long. And that's the thing. When we're so familiar with something, when we're so familiar with certain things, we've only known that. And even though it's unhealthy, we're kind of like, we're afraid of this new thing. So that's the question. The question is, like, am I bringing my old codependent behaviors into this relationship? Or, like, is this good? Is this healthy? And that's what it is. You have to kind of ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself anything that comes up for you. If you're triggered, ask yourself, is this because I'm reverting back to my codependent tendencies? Or is there like, all triggers are internal wounds anyway. But, ask yourself that. If this relationship is different to the codependent relationships you've had, then it could be that it's starting to show signs of an interdependent relationship. Keeping that healthy dynamic, keeping who you are, keeping yourselves as separate entities while having a beautiful, harmonious union as well. That is the power of interdependent relationship, of keeping your independence. And that's, this is so important to have space, especially as an empath. You need that space to recharge. And I went off on a tangent there. But yeah, like, when you're in this codependent relationship dynamic, you are constantly by that person's side. There has to be something big going on if you have something to do differently, because your whole life is consumed by the other person, by making them happy. You're walking on eggshells. You're afraid to use your voice. You're afraid to say you like certain things. Well, actually, you probably have said you like certain things, but they probably knocked it down, and you're like, okay, no, I'm sorry, I don't like that. And that's what I did in my 8-year narcissistic relationship. He used to, like, I used to like certain things, and he'd tell me I was childish, or because he was 17 years older than me and stuff. And he'd tell me that, that was stupid, or that's wrong. And I would stop liking those things because he didn't like them. And I started living my life by his rules, because this was easier. It was like, okay, he won't leave me if I do what he says. He won't leave me if I don't speak. He won't leave me if I don't stand up for myself. Now, obviously, this is all unconscious. You're not sitting there going, oh my God, I'm going to do this. This is unconscious. This is what they do to control you. This is how codependency happens. But this is to do, as I said, it's to do with your own insecurities. And like, when you don't love and validate yourself, that's when an unhealthy codependent relationship happens, because you're seeking outside yourself for that validation. And I go back to that text messaging as well. Like, is that happy morning text actually a codependent behavior? Like, if you don't get that validation every morning, are you going to freak out and go, oh my God, he doesn't like me anymore, oh my God, he didn't text me? No, that's codependency. People are busy, people have lives, people work, people do things other than stare at their phone all day. Like, some people do, but like, we're not teenagers anymore. Why are we seeking outside of ourselves for this validation? We should be able to be so secure within our own selves that we know we are worthy of love, that we know that the partner we're with is a healthy partner and that they are trustworthy, that we don't need to be, like, we don't have to have trackers on your phones or whatever people do. I don't know, I think that's psycho, like, but, you don't need to know where your partner is all the time, because you know they love you and you know that you can trust them. This is why it's so important to have this healthy interdependent relationship dynamic, because that's how secure you should be within yourself. Validate yourself first, and then attract in that high vibrational love. Attract in that healthy relationship, and understand it. Like, understand that if they're not in communication, trust that they care about you, and trust that you don't have to keep running all the time for this validation to know that they care about you. Like, this one, making sure our fella texted or rang her every morning at 5 a.m. What the fuck? Like, Jesus Christ, just give people some space. Like, like, I'm all for romance. I'm all for that, like, oh yeah, he was thinking about me kind of thing. But you have your own life to live. You have your own interests. Like, partners should be able to go on holidays separately as well. Should be able to go on work conferences separately as well, and not have that fear. Like, you should be so secure within yourself and that relationship that you know that person is never going to hurt you. And I like, that's a very alien concept for me, even, because most, like, all my relationships in the past, friends, family members, and romantic, have been codependent. There has been that fear there. That fear of not being worthy, good enough, like, excuse me. But, that's the thing, like, that's all I've ever known. So to actually start to see the signs of an interdependent relationship, it's kind of scary. You're kind of going, like, is there something wrong here? Or am I reverting back to my codependent ways? So you need to ask yourself that. And that's what the universe is giving me a lot of lessons at the moment on the difference between codependency and interdependency, because that's all I've ever known. And ever, like, I've never actually had an interdependent relationship, and I want to be healed enough to be able to allow that into my life. And I believe that I'm getting there. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I'm starting to kind of understand what interdependence is for myself, and it's just like, it's actually, it's freeing. Like, you should be so happy within your relationship, but so free in your relationship as well. You're whole on your own, they're whole on your own, and you come together in mutual wholeness. But like, there's that quote from Will Smith, like, you can't depend on somebody else. You can't expect a partner to make you happy if you can't make yourself happy. You should be able to make yourself happy first, and they make themselves happy first, and you both come into the relationship together and share that happiness. Depending on somebody else for your happiness is actually quite selfish if you cannot do it for yourself. And that's what it is. Codependent relationships, you're depending on somebody else for your happiness, for your validation, for that love. You need to be high vibe enough that you don't need to be in a relationship, but you want to be in one. You get me? There's the difference there. You're okay on your own. You're happy on your own. You've got that love on your own, and you can bring that into a relationship and share that with that person, and they share their independence and their happiness with you. Instead of seeking outside yourself for that validation, seeking outside yourself for that need to be loved, because you shouldn't need to be loved. You are loved. You are loved by yourself, by the universe, by your spirit being, by everyone. But you are loved mainly by yourself. And when you love yourself, you can attract in that high vibration love as well. And, it's freeing. When you're in this toxic codependent dynamic, it's suffocating. You know, you don't even know you're suffocating, but you're in this dark cloud and you can't get out of it. And you are so afraid of any confrontation. And even when there is arguments, you apologize to them for them being nasty to you because you're afraid that they're going to break up with you. And it's just ridiculous. You know, you're saying sorry to them for hurting you. Like, that's not a healthy relationship dynamic. That's wrong, like. You know, and when it comes to interdependence as well, like, the communication is the most important thing. Communicating within the relationship. And like, I think that's the thing with codependency. There is no real communication. There's either arguments, abuse, and silence, really, because you're walking on eggshells. You're afraid to use your voice. Whereas with interdependent relationships, there's proper communication. There's good communication. There's open communication. You say what's going on. You tell. You know, it's equal. You know, and there's no fear. There's no fear of what. You know, there's no fear of hurting that other person because, you know, you've both grown enough to know that this, you know, that you're secure within each other. That you can say anything to each other, that they accept you for who you are. And that's the beauty of it as well. Being accepted for who you are. All the crazy, you know, all of it. Like, all your twerks are accepted by this person. Quirks. Did I say twerks? Twerks. But yeah, all your quirks are accepted by this person. You don't have to hide yourself like you did in that codependent relationship. You don't have to hide your personality. You don't have to hide your crazy side. You don't have to take down your freak flag. But in an interdependent relationship, you just wave your freak flag and say, accept me, take me as I am, and that's it. And they will take you as you are because they love you for who you are, not for who they want you to become. And that's the lovely thing about with the difference as well. In codependent relationships, they dull your shine. They steal your shine. They steal your ambition. You lose all sense of self. If you try to better yourself, they will knock you down. They will make you feel shitty, etc. That's especially with narcissists in that one. They will make you lose all sense of self. They will make you lose all your personality and all future intentions. Whereas with interdependent relationships, that person will help you grow. You have a goal, you have a dream. They're like, come on, let's do it. You can do this. You can do this. And they encourage you to be your full-blown, crazy, authentic, powerful, empowered self because they love you for that. And that's a lovely thing as well. I find, you know, because we're always changing. We're always growing and we're always creating new versions of ourselves. We're becoming better versions of ourselves all the time. And with an unhealthy relationship dynamic, especially with a narcissist, they will shit on you and they will make sure you don't grow into that new version. They will make sure you don't grow into that powerful version of yourself. But your interdependent relationship, your interdependent partner will love every version of you, every new version of you, because they love every bit of you as you are, but they will love every bit of you as you become it as well, and vice versa. And I think that is lovely as well, you know, because I read that before. It was an elderly couple, and it was like, how did you keep your relationship strong all these years? And this is lovely, actually. The way he said it was like, because I fell in love with her every time she became a new version of herself. So it was like fresh, you get me? So like, you know, he was already in love with this beautiful woman, but when she became a higher vibrational version of herself, he got to fall in love with her all over again, you know, and fall in love with her more. So that's the beauty of interdependent relationships. Like, they grow with you. Your partner grows with you. They love you as you grow. They love you more as you grow. You love them more as they grow because you're loving that extra higher vibrational version of them. So you're getting to learn more about them as they learn more about themselves. And I just think that is so beautiful. Do you know? And like, I can see how beautiful and healthy an interdependent relationship can be. And that's what I aspire to have now, because when I look back, those codependent relationships, they were so toxic, they were so unhealthy, they were abusive, they made me lose who I was. And like, I can feel myself growing and growing and growing as I come out of my hibernation and my hermit mode, my isolation, my healing journey. And I can feel more of me coming out, you know, and like, that's the beauty of it. you should become more yourself, more your crazy when you're in the right relationship. Not less than that, not lose that personality. You can see more of yourself, I suppose, blossoming because of the healthy dynamic within an interdependent relationship. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You can see yourself blossom, but then you can see your partner blossom as well. And the two of you end up growing beautifully, separately, but together. And I just think that is so, so magical. It is so divine. It really is. That's what divine love is. That's what a spiritual love is. That's what a high vibrational, healthy love looks like. And, you know, when you kind of understand that, when you heal those core wounds within yourself, when you heal your insecurities that have led you to be codependent before, to come into a healthy relationship with that realness, with that safety within you, knowing that you're secure enough within yourself that you don't need that external validation. But when you get it, it's like the cherry on the cake. It's like, oh yay, but you don't need it. It's something, I think you can appreciate it more when you're not when you don't need it unhealthily. You get to appreciate it because it's extra. Do you know, whereas when you're codependent, it's something that you need to survive. In a sense, it's a survival thing. It's like, if I don't get this, I'm going to die. Whereas you're in interdependence, you're so happy within yourself that you're buzzing anyway. And then this person gives you just that little extra, and it's just like it's powerful. You know, if you're so independent and happy, and they're so independent and happy, and then you boost that together, it's like magic, explosions. It's like fireworks. Do you know what I mean? Can you imagine that kind of? It's like a volcanic eruption of happiness, of healthy love. Like, that's what it's going to be like. Do you know what I mean? So aspire to that. Do that inner work. Do that inner healing that has caused you to attract codependent relationships in the past. Find that core wound. Figure out that abandonment wound. Heal your inner child. Face your shadow. Do that work as well. Do you know, there's so many different techniques we can do to open our heart and to become that full empowered version of ourselves, so that we do not go back into those codependent tendencies and codependent ways. And understand that if a relationship looks completely different to your codependent relationships, then maybe it's the real one. Maybe it is actually this alien love that you so truly deserve, and that you're actually coming into a healthy relationship dynamic compared to what you used to be in the past. The more you heal, the more you will attract that high vibration love into your life, and the more happier you will be within yourself, but within everything that is around you. So thank you so much for listening today, and I really hope this resonates. If it does, please like and share, and please subscribe to my channel so I can reach as many people as possible. And if you would like help in your journey, please book me for a discovery call today, and I would love nothing more than to help you on your path. Thanks again. Bye-bye.